Welcome to the So You're Ready to Date podcast. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Angie. And here's where we talk about all things dating, love, and relationships. And most importantly, having fun.
Join us for practical advice for dating successfully on your terms.
Welcome aboard
and enjoy the ride.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. It is another beautiful day outside and another great week to tune into another episode of So You're Ready to Date. And today we're bringing you something a little bit different and something a little bit special. Just as you would celebrate a 1-year anniversary in a relationship, today we're going to celebrate our 1 year of podcasting and bringing you great episodes with everything life, love, dating, and relationship that you could ask for or that you do ask for. So I think today we're just going to do a little celebration and talk about, how we've gotten this far and where we're going.
I hate to say this, but I think we are both at this point shocked that we're still committed to this. I think it speaks volumes to us being like, okay, we've committed this together. It's a lot easier to sometimes show up for that other person than it is to show up for ourselves. I mean, I have a podcast on my own that's been quiet for like 2 years now. So I know that it does take a lot to show up each and every week and to record stuff for you and to record stuff for ourselves. I think that has been one of the biggest things that I've learned in this year, that yes, we wanted to put out podcasts and episodes that meant something to people. But there were times when I took away something from us having this conversation or some of the guests that we've interviewed where I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was a new way to look at it. So you come at it from this space of, I want to share my experience, my knowledge, my opinions. And then you come away from the whole experience. You'd be like, I actually learned something about myself today.
That's the one thing that I've taken away from this too, is coming at this from the love and relationship aspect. It's been really great to talk about it, but even in preparing for the episodes or the conversations that you and I have had or the guests that we've had on, there have been so many light bulb moments. And I think that's what makes this journey in relationships so much fun, is when you have those light bulb moments and you can really take those moments and those little tidbits of information and enhance your relationships or form new relationships in a meaningful way, which is so much fun.
Yes, it has definitely been that, where even like just the relationship with myself, because it was when we interviewed the ladies from the Full Cup podcast, and they were, talking about creating this life that they loved before they started worrying about dating again. And it's something that we have talked about before, but I think it was that wonderful reminder of, how do I create this life that feels complete to me now, that if somebody else were to come and join me, which we're hoping that it does, if that's really what you want. And that's probably why you're listening, is that you're hoping to have that relationship, but to still encourage people that being single is okay. Yes, we talk about dating and relationships and stuff like that, but never to forget that you're not incomplete because you don't have this person. And I think that's been this overarching light bulb moment for me, where it's like, okay, yes, I do have somebody now, but it doesn't mean that I was not good before or broken before. And if this doesn't work out, I have no thoughts that it's not going to work out. Knock on wood. I don't want to have jinxed it that this relationship I'm in is not going to work out. It is, but I will be okay too. So I think it's trying to create this environment where people feel good and comfortable, whatever aspect of your life you're in. And that's kind of hopefully what I hope we strive to do, is to help people build this confidence and build this joy and love and peace maybe in their life, that relationship or not, I can be okay and I can be happy. And if it doesn't apply to you now, that's okay. But it maybe applies to you in 6 months or a year, or maybe it's not a romantic relationship it applies to, but sometimes it can apply to like friendships or family relationships. So trying to see the like bigger picture, that yes, we're talking about dating and relationships mostly, but we ultimately just want people to find happiness however their life looks.
And I think that that has been a shift from our almost original intention, which I think, even though we knew that we were going to come on and talk about dating and we were going to talk about all of that, we know that we have to be happy and we're going to attract what we are, not what we want. And so helping people recognize that. But I do think that we have very much shifted and talked about how you do that single in a relationship, what that looks like, and how that is going to enhance and build relationships in your life. And even if it's not building those relationships right now. So I love the fact for you and I and all of our listeners that we have really channeled our let's make sure you're happy. Let's make sure you're happy in your relationship. Let's make sure that you're happy in your life, and let's give ourselves and everyone else permission to just be who they are. And you don't have to change a thing. It is about cultivating what the life that you want. And so, just like you said, I really love that we have put our focus on that, even though it has been maybe a shift from what our original intention was. But I love how we've watched the podcast ebb and flow and kind of grow into something where we can both get really passionate about the topics that we're talking about.
I'm glad you brought that up because it reminds me of when we were planning for this season and how very different planning the episodes for this season were to like a year ago when we were doing like our first season of podcasts. Because you at one point, you're like, we just got to lean into the fact that we're two heterosexual women talking to other heterosexual women. And this is the like woo-woo stuff that you and I both kind of thrive on. And I think this season, especially, we started to kind of dip our toes into, we're talking about like the feminine energy. We're talking about, pretty soon we'll start talking about crystals. I don't know. But I think it's the way that the podcast is almost matured in a sense of we're finding our feet and we're finding our voice, and our listeners are amazing. And they've given us some great questions and great suggestions that have kind of helped guide the podcast to be able to embrace all aspects in it, not just have to be, hey, why don't you just shut up and talk about dating? I don't need to hear about self-love. Our first episode of the season, we spent a good chunk of time talking about embracing and loving ourselves, and roadblocks to your joy and happiness had nothing to do with dating, nothing to do with relationships. So I think it's becoming this comprehensive and all-inclusive way of how do we talk about relationships and dating and all this stuff if we're not talking about how do I love myself? How do I manage these roadblocks to get to that point where I am getting what I really want and not just more of the same?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that we also, it's matured. Last season showed a lot of maturity from our first season too, but we also dove into some very difficult or uncomfortable topics to talk about. I think when we started talking about sex, and, kind of putting that out there, that was uncomfortable to do that on such a public forum. But it was also a lot of personal growth and development and stepping outside of our own comfort zones. And if we're not going to do that, it's really hard to feel good about telling our listeners that it's okay to do that and step outside of your own personal comfort zones. So I really think that it is really cool to watch the path that we're on and the road that we've walked to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone with what we're doing, to follow along and really lead by example with the content that we're putting out there too, and that our actions match what we're talking about. So I think just watching that journey has been a lot of fun too.
Yes. And to be able to have some of these conversations without like giggling like a 12-year-old, there were moments. But we also talked, not like sex. That's a really important part of a relationship. But we also talked, with Christina and Megan about death. And that's another thing that you don't necessarily think is going to be part of dating and relationships, but it was a listener suggestion, and we appreciate that because that is something that people go through. Beth Ann talked about like dating and divorce. So there are like negative things that we go through in life. And how do we come out the other side of that? I think far and away, our episode with Beth Ann was one of the like highlights for both of us, as well as one of our highest listened to episodes, because she is a beautiful example of how what you put out is what you get back. And her energy and her enthusiasm for just being your big dorky self is so contagious. How can you not want to just go out and make everybody your new best friend when she shows you it's just so much fun and so freaking easy?
Right, exactly. And I think that episode was one of my favorites and still is my favorites. But I like all the episodes where we bring guests in too to talk and get that other perspective and get that. So we've had an opportunity to meet some really cool people through this journey and to get to know our listeners. And so for all of you listening out there, feel free to engage. We love your feedback and we love the fact that you have sent us suggestions and asked questions and have been engaging with us. And we would love to see more of that too.
Right, because ultimately our goal is we can talk in a vacuum, and I think we've proven that Angie and I can talk. We have to put a time limit on some of these episodes, on all of our episodes really, but there have been some where we're like, if we have to like cut this off, we're going to have to do 2 episodes, because if we're not careful, it's going to be an hour and a half, and that's not really what we want. These to be short and sweet and easy to digest. But ultimately, this is not just for you and Angie and I to just talk. This is for hopefully us to make an impact in the world. And when you give us your feedback and when you tell us, I want to know more about this, I have questions about that, it puts us in a place where I think we both love to like, ooh, let's research this. Ooh, let's get more information.
Right. It teaches us something new and it helps us show up for you in a way that is meaningful and impactful too. And that's what we're here to do and what we're striving for. So thank you to all of our listeners that have supported us, that have engaged with us, that have sent in suggestions or asked questions or provided any type of feedback or support along the way. We probably would have given up a long time ago if it hadn't been for you guys.
Yeah, probably. Just to know that there are people out there and listening. It's also a different kind of like nerve wracking that there are people out there and listening. But it's that encouragement and that engagement that makes us every week decide, yes, we're going to get back on that Zoom call and we're going to record something that hopefully either changes somebody's mind, gives somebody maybe some peace, or just provides some information that maybe you didn't have before.
We promise going forward, we're still going to have a lot of topics about relationships. We'll hit some of the old favorites again. We'll talk about them, bring them up new again. It's been a year. We've all forgotten about some of the stuff that we talked about a year ago. So we'll bring some of those old favorites back, but we're still going to have our overarching theme of self-love through all of this. And who knows, crystals may come up.
Well, we're always trying to keep it fresh for ourselves too. So, who knows if we have a fantastic guest who knows all about crystals and love, then far be it from us to boo-hoo something that might actually work for you. Right?
Exactly. So I know this episode was a little bit short and sweet, but we just needed to take just a minute to come on here and celebrate with you guys that we recognize that you have supported us in this journey and that we wouldn't be here without you. Again, thank you for all of your love and support. Thank you for all of your contributions and your input and guidance on making our podcast what it is. And we just wanted to celebrate again, like I said, with you that we have officially been on air for a year, and cheers to many more episodes, many more seasons, and many more years.
Yes, we have so many exciting things coming up, not only in this season, but we're strategizing, we're talking. Don't be surprised if you don't see some other fun and exciting things coming from us and from the podcast. But as always, We celebrate with you, but we need you. So we need you to email your questions, your funny stories, your topic suggestions, guests, people you would like to hear from, whether it's a specific person or maybe just a topic you would want an expert to come in and talk about. Email us at soyou'readytodate@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If that doesn't work, you can DM us. Our Instagram links are always going to be in the show notes. Make sure you like and subscribe, follow, hit all of the buttons so that when a new episode goes live, wherever you're listening to podcasts, it's going to notify you. Rate and review us if there's a space to do that. Do all of the things so that people can find us and that more people can benefit from our wisdom.
And we love you. We'll be back next week with an all new topic and look forward to seeing you then.